Hello, good evening, and welcome to the Majority Show, Scotland's #1 anti-nationalist show. We're glad to have you with us tonight. We're broadcasting live, as we do every Wednesday at 7 p.m. on YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook. So I'm the host, Mark Devlin, and I'm here tonight with my co-hosts, Mary Devlin and David Griffiths.
Good evening, everyone. It's going to be a lively one tonight.
Absolutely. We've got lots to cover.
Right. Okay, so what are we actually going to be talking about tonight, David?
Well, tonight I'm going to be asking just how long do we have to wait until Nicola Sturgeon announces her intention to stand down?
And I'll be giving an update on the state of the nation.
And I'll be asking, is rapist really a gender? Okay, all that and more is coming up, including, well, I think, David, you're supposed to say this bit.
Indeed. And of course, we have everyone's favourite section, Zoomer of the Week.
Right, so we will be back in just a moment. Yeah, okay. All right, we'll figure that out in a minute. Hi, welcome back to the show. And this is Scotland's #1 anti-national show. Just going to let you know that next week we will be no show. Sorry, because Mary and I have to go to London for meetings. So that's going to be Wednesday, February. The next one is going to be Wednesday, February the 22nd. So don't be sad. We will be back soon. As you know, we are doing a crowdfund to get Resign Sturgeon billboards all across Scotland. We announced it on the show last week. And we've been amazed by your response so far. Thank you very much. We blew through our target of £4,000. Now, I think we're just under £5,000. If you would like to, participate, please go to our webpage and donate. If you go to themajority.scot, you can just go to the top there. It says donate, and that will lead you right to it. Or, of course, you can see it on social media.
Indeed. So remember, guys, that the last Majority Resign Sturgeon campaign, which was way back in 2020, was a huge success, and it was covered in over 70 newspapers worldwide. So really significant coverage.
And now is the time where she may actually resign. So let's get those billboards running.
Yeah, indeed.
Right. Okay, and one of the most important parts of that was that it bolstered support for our side. I can't tell you how many people we met who have said, "Oh, I saw you resign Sturgeon billboards." So that was a big thing here. So that is really great.
Yeah, indeed. So, of course, now, guys, is also the time to get your Resign Sturgeon mug and T-shirt. So show someone you love or hate, come to that. Fight the power and help the majority at the same time.
Yes, that's good. The mugs especially have been flying off the shelves, as it were, the metaphorical shelves. Anyway, someone's shelves, not our shelves, but they come directly from the manufacturer. What have we got? Plus, a little bit off from the sale from each one helps the show.
Indeed. And on that subject, we'd like to thank our friends at UK Union Voice and at United Against Separation for supporting the show by letting us broadcast directly to their Facebook pages, from where I know many of you are watching right now. Thank you, guys.
And as usual, we would like to ask you to subscribe on YouTube if you can. We're trying to get up to 1,000 subscribers. I think we're at 717 right now. So just keep pushing that, and we'll get more higher up in the YouTube algorithm, and that will be great.
Indeed. And wherever you are, as we always say, please like, share, comment, tell your friends. Just extend the reach of the show at the click of a button. Boing. Simple as that.
And as usual, I'll be handling the comments tonight, but I don't know if anyone's actually put in a comment yet. Nothing is coming up on my screen at the moment. So
I've got a few. There are a few, definitely.
I'm not seeing them. Maybe Mark could help me out.
I'm going to reload the page. Okay, so we might go.
Yep. Oh, we've lost Mark. We've lost sound. Oh no.
So here we are back again, just to see if that brings the chat back.
Mark, we were still here.
Yeah.
No? Oh, you were still there.
Yeah, my chat isn't showing anything. I can see the red dot comes on, tells me that people are sending messages, but I'm not
You
seeing
might want
anything.
to refresh your page, Mary,
No.
and see how that goes.
Right. Okay, I'll reload, see what happens.
New comments will
Cool,
display
cool.
here. That's the wrong.
Lots of good comments already. Linda Ross was at the George Square rally last Sunday, as was I, and I was met by Kate from Prestwick and her husband. Lovely to meet you, Kate. It was a real pleasure to be recognised. So it was good to see you both.
Perhaps I should go out of the studio, Mark, and come back in, do you think?
Yeah, you could try that. Yes, that's a possibility. Yes. Well, of course, the show is nothing. Well, no, the show is much less if there's no comments. So please go ahead and try and fix that. There's as well. So let's we'll move on in the meantime. Anyway, with the next segment coming up, it's going to be David's going to predict how long Nicola Sturgeon can stay in her job. Mary's going to be giving a state of the nation, and I'll be wondering if a rapist really is the third gender. Okay, so where's that? We've got that wee thing. Here we go. Right, well, Mary's still not back right now, but anyway, let's just keep going on.
Yeah.
As if things weren't bad enough for Nicola Sturgeon, this week she decided that she would do a news conference and make things much, much, much worse. During that conference, Nicola had three options. She had the option of admitting that Isla Branson is a man, but in doing so, she would admit that trans women are not women and destroy her self-ID bill. Or she could have said Adam Graham is a woman, and that would mean that a rapist would have to go into women's prisons. But as she can't do any of those, she went for option 3, which was to try and claim that rapist is a third gender. And even though she herself called Graham she multiple times. Let's have a look. Oh, I've lost a clip, so I'll just back here. We've got some issues in general, but we'll get there. All right, so here's the clip here.
Thank you, First Minister. I think you just referred to Isla Bryson using the word her. Does that mean you do, in fact, think she is a woman?
Anything into... I am trying to rationally...
Individual, look, you started saying her.
What I'm trying to do is address the issues rather than take it into the kind of, headline generating. I'm trying to rationally deal with the issues that arise here, and that's what I'll continue to try to do.
Why did you say that?
I can't remember. I'll take your word for it.
Well,
fine. Look, I'm trying not to...
As a woman, is that not the case?
But what I'm saying is, Isla Bryson calls herself a woman, but what I'm trying to say is in the context of the prison service, that is not the relevant factor here. The relevant factor is the crime that the individual has committed and has been convicted of.
We've all been asking you, and you've been running away from the question. We have been asking you for days, do you regard Isla Bryson as a woman?
Herself as a woman, I regard the individual as a rapist, and in the context, the context of the prison service, what matters is that the individual was convicted of rape, and that is what we're talking about here, and that's what I will continue to focus on.
Oh, what a mess. What a big mess that is. Basically she can't say if a rapist is a man or a woman, which seems a little bit strange. What do you think about that, David?
Well, I thought what was very notable about that was she said, Isla Bryson regards herself as a woman. Herself, really? Is that right? Okay. Don't you mean Adam Graham is trying to pretend that he's a woman? Because let's face it, Nicola, that's what everybody in Scotland knows, including you, but you're pretending otherwise because of your appalling piece of legislation, which isn't going to last. We all know it's going to be scrapped, and all of those clowns in the opposition parties who backed it will backtrack and they will eat humble pie, and it will be taken off the statute book this year, I guarantee it, because you cannot make laws out of utter fantasy as they're currently trying to do. And she's getting herself in the biggest mess she could ever imagine, and I'm loving every second of it. It's great.
Oh, it is a shocker, definitely. I thought it was so great, the voice there. Who was that? You said it was Tom Gordon?
Tom Gordon, yes. Yeah.
He's very calm.
Yeah.
On there, just really laying it into her in a very calm. It's almost like in a movie or something, you hear the disembodied voice coming out and saying, are you really a robot or not? That type of thing, and the person really struggling or robotic Sturgeon, trying to stick to her script, really struggling. But, questions, why would Sturgeon put herself through this after, I think it's because she thinks that the press is still friendly to her, right?
Yeah.
And that they would still, lap it up. And she would be able to just come out with the usual waffle that she always does. It's just, you ask her a question, there's never a direct answer. And the press simply have let her get away with that for too long, and now they know they've got something. They've got something they can go on. They look like a wee dog with a bone, and they can start going on to, because she cannot answer this question. There's between a rock and a hard place. It's impossible. She's put herself entirely at their mercy, and well, maybe perhaps he used to be more merciful, but maybe not anymore. His smart answer would have been, I think, to just say this bill's, not going to work. It's going to cause a lot of political trouble. We'll rethink it, make an excuse to rethink it, women's concerns or whatever it is, and then to make the changes that would satisfy women's groups, UK government's equalities legislation, and and make something that would help trans people as well, what they think would help trans people. Anyway, no. But
it was never about the trans people, was it?
No, it's never been about them, I think.
No, I mean, if it was about the trans people, then she would just be trying to, do what she had to do to try and get this through.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. Of course, yeah. So they're stuck. I mean, if the bill fails, then they don't get anything out of it anyway. Right. But she's quite well prepared for the bill to fail anyway, instead of actually making amendments that could help them. But she's going to fight it all the way to the Supreme Court. And I was reading a few things that said, well, that guarantees that this is going to be headline news for the next year. Right? When the whole of Scotland almost is against her, her own party's against her, the UK government's against her, she's just sitting there in her wee ivory tower or whatever, it's isolated from everyone, thinks, I've got to get this through, I've got to fight against those bad people in Westminster, those terrible bigots, homophobes and racists. And she's just, I mean, that's what she said, right? Yep. And she's just completely stuck now because she just is a person who refuses to back down, because I don't know if she's ever been in a position where she's had to back down before. What do you think of that, David?
Yeah, I think that's absolutely true. She genuinely thinks that the right is on her side on this issue. If she does mean it, but who knows whether she does or not. And you're right. I mean, that as I said, I think on the show 2 weeks ago, that interview she gave where she said, well, of course, you realise they're all just bigots and homophobes and racists. It's like, that was utterly extraordinary for a First Minister to say anything like that. It was like somebody who was half drunk saying, they're just bigots, I hate them. What are you talking about, you fool? You're talking about people who have genuine concerns about what is yet another example of extraordinarily poorly legislated SNP an SNP bill. It's just dreadful law. You cannot make laws like this, as has been proven, because the protest and the biggest concern was, what if people abuse this? And the answer to that was, you're a transphobe. No, yes. No, I'm not a transphobe. I'm telling you what's going to happen. And lo and behold, it happened. And suddenly they said, oh my God, who could have seen this happening? Who could have foreseen this? Everybody, guys. And all they keep saying is, it's been backed by 2/3 of the Scottish Parliament. Will more fool them. And I guarantee the people who have backed it will be first in line to say, my God, we were wrong. I'm sorry. I guarantee the opposition parties will turn tail and say, no, we were wrong. And so they should, led by the utterly wretched Alex Cole-Hamilton with his dedication to Beth.
Well, I think they'll be the last to do it, though, right?
We've highlighted him the last couple of weeks.
Yes.
Dreadful. Awful. So, yeah, I mean, who knows what on earth is driving her to do this, but somebody made the interesting point today that maybe she's doing this because she's going to try to make this the issue that causes her to leave. Well, I couldn't get this through. Everyone has proven to me that Scotland's not ready for this yet. You're not ready to hear my message, so I'm going to leave. That is possible. It could be. But honestly, I don't know what's in her head right now, other than thoughts of leaving, which most assuredly are in her head.
It seems a bit weird. You don't try. I think she just thinks she's right, and everything else is wrong. And that's what it comes down to.
I think she's so used to being able to bulldoze everything through. Yeah. If she thinks it's a good idea, I'll just bulldoze it through.
I've somebody said to me this week, when you surround yourself with people who assure you that, pardon my French, your shit doesn't stink, you start to believe it. And that's what she started to believe. And I think that's very true. Pardon me for the vernacular there, but I mean, it's the only way to put it. And I think that's pretty much where she is. She actually thinks that she's right, we're all wrong. What do you mean I'm wrong? I can't be wrong.
Well, I think one thing to be clear, though, is that none of us are saying, and nor would we ever say, I think, that trans individuals are perverts. This is not what it's about. Life must be tough enough without Nicola Sturgeon using your gender dysphoria as a political football.
Absolutely.
But there are enough male perverts out there who will abuse this legislation to make it a danger to women. And that has been unbelievably clear in these past few weeks. And, she must be able to read the papers, just wall to wall bad press on this issue. Really, really terrible. Okay. David, Mary, okay, we'll come back in a second.
Yeah.
And we will... David, I wonder if you can maybe do your section next, and I'll have a look see if I can get the chats.
No problem at all. That's fine. I'll do that right now. Yeah,
so
sure.
Let's do that if you can, and we'll be back in a second. Okay. Right. Okay. So, David, you're up then.
Okay, guys. Well, I thought, as I wasn't on the show last week, I thought it was apropos maybe to discuss.
Oh, I turned him off.
The wrong way. Sorry, David, can you start again?
I turned you off instead of me.
No problem at all. Sorry, guys. Last week, I caused a little bit of a stir on social media, as many of you will have seen. I tweeted, truthfully, that I'd been told that Nicola Sturgeon will shortly announce that she will not lead the party into the next UK general election. Now, remember, Sturgeon has already given several hints that she probably won't lead the party into the next Holyrood election, which is, of course, not for 3.5 years. But the next UK general election has to be in the next 2 years. It has to be in the next 22 months, really. Anyway, it's fair to say this revelation caused quite a reaction, because the tweet has so far been viewed 394,000 times, and it's received almost 5,000 likes, much more than any tweet I've ever posted in all my time on the platform. Straight away, the Scottish Daily Express got in touch with me and said, have you got a timescale for this? I said, no, not really, but I'm just being told this is what's being discussed. The National, of course, Scotland's leading pro-independence rag, attempted a spoiler, and the way they did that was by attacking me, by rehashing a 3-year-old Sunday Mail hatchet piece in which I was accused of being linked to a football-related Twitter account several years ago. Oh my goodness, guys, how could I ever live with the shame of that? Anyway, so that's all they could come up with to try and rubbish the story. And of course, lastly, Dan Wooten, who's one of the hosts on GB News, quoted my prediction, quoted me as a political analyst, and he said, referred to me as ex-Holyrood candidate Sir David Griffiths, because he's in his Australian accent. I don't know where on earth that came from, but thanks for that, Dan. Anyway, now I wasn't on the show last week when the story broke, but I thought I would just tell a little bit more about my prediction. Firstly, I am absolutely certain that my info is correct. Now, I've been given information in this fashion before, which proved to be absolutely true, and that information was, and this was way back in the day, that information was that young female staffers in the SNP were told, don't be around Alex Salmond on your own at night. Now, that doesn't sound too shocking a revelation, but I was told that in 2011. Now, remember that in a parliamentary inquiry about 2 years ago, Nicola Sturgeon said, when asked, when did you first realise that Alex Salmond might be a little bit, handsy? The first I ever knew was in 2018. Really? Well, I knew 7 years earlier, darling. So you've been around him all that time since. So who are you kidding? So that's just yet another example of a Sturgeon lie. But I firmly believe that she will not be the SNP leader when the next general election is held. I believe that is widely known in SNP circles. And I believe also that announcement will be made. And I said last week, shortly, it doesn't mean like today or tomorrow, but either at a time of the First Minister's choosing, she'll say, I want to tell you all this, or else, alternatively, and is now looking increasingly likely, it might be the result that announcement comes out as a result of a Holyrood coup. What do you think, Mark?
Right. Okay. Well, first of all, I don't know what's going on with the chat. I'm sorry to say that we can't see your chat messages on our side. David, if you want to, from time to time, you could read them out. That's
100%. I will do. Yeah, I will do indeed.
So keep sending them in, and David will do the chat today. That's probably the way of it. Now, to answer your question here, what have we got? We have, it's crunch time. Oh, yeah. Okay, crunch time will be at special party conference, I think, because, I mean, at that point, she has to stand up in front of her or the assembled MPs and MSPs members and what have you, and say, first of all, say to them, well, we're going to do a de facto referendum. And this de facto referendum is not, people are not happy in the party about that. We're seeing people, excuse me, don't know where it is. It was up here somewhere. Seeing people, MPs, really getting upset and saying it's not going to work, and that one person says that it's a noose around the SNP's neck and so on. And we know this because basically, if the de facto referendum is extremely high risk policy, it's a desperate policy that has very little upside and has a lot of downside. The downside is, of course, in fact, I think it's just all downside, really. Basically, if they win, they go to think they can go to Westminster and say, well, we demand a referendum. Westminster just says, well, no, we already had a referendum. So there's nothing going on there. And then if they lose, imagine they lose, which they would, it seems almost certain that they would lose. I don't imagine anyone would put a bet on that they would actually win, especially considering all this nonsense. Then they are they're going to, independence is finished, for the party's finished, even because everyone knows then that's it, that's the end. There's no further path after this scheme. There's nothing after this scheme, right?
Absolutely. They've got nowhere else to go. That's exactly right, and this is my point with it as well. If Sturgeon, let's face it, this was her idea, and this was a knee-jerk reaction to the Supreme Court ruling, after which she said, it's not really so important about the number of seats we win in Westminster, it's all about the number of votes. At which point, all of her 48 MSPs in Westminster said, excuse me, it doesn't matter about the number of seats you win. Hang on. So that's what's caused it. She has lost her political instinct. I guarantee that. She really hasn't got it anymore. Now, since I posted this prediction and this news, a lot of pro-UK followers of mine have actually cast doubt on this. I understand why, but a lot of them are actually getting a bit annoyed with me, saying, why are you saying this? That's not right. She's not going to resign. Well, actually, I'm told she will, so let's just see if I'm right. But anyway, why do I say it with such conviction? Because I am absolutely convinced. Firstly, she's been talking openly for months now and very animatedly in interviews and very jocularly about her life after politics. What will she do next? Oh, I might write in my memoirs. I might take another role. Now, that's lovely, but those are not subject matters that would be even considered by someone who is supposedly in the position to be about to lead her region of the UK to become a nation state for the first time, really, since the Middle Ages. If that really was your strong and avowed intent, you wouldn't be joking about what you're going to do for a job next. You'd be absolutely focused on the prized outcome, and she's not, clearly. So secondly, I believe there are more scandals about to hit the fight with the First Minister and the party. The two ferries won't be seaworthy by the time of the next UK general election, not a chance. One of them will probably never sail. The Sanjeev Gupta scandal will show SNP waste of public money on a colossal scale, which will dwarf.
Yeah, but I don't know about those, because I think, it's wasting money is one thing. I think people can expect.
It's like SNP to waste money,
I mean, governments waste money. It's a bit like, and whenever you mention stuff like that, then the SNP just say, well, Westminster's wasting more.
That's true. They do. You're quite right.
But they can't say that on the gender issue, and they can't say that on the de facto referendum issue. They can't look somewhere else.
Right. Yeah, you're right. The de facto referendum was a massive catastrophic error by Sturgeon, as was the gender bill. So I mean, this is why I say she's lost a very keen political instinct. It's gone.
Well, yeah, you said that earlier, and again, it's a bit. I don't know if she had really had much political instinct.
I don't know. I mean, you say that, Mark. I mean, I'm critical of Sturgeon, but I mean, for somebody to have won so many elections and
what I'm trying to say is that it's easy to say we're going to give you independence, right? That's easy, and Westminster bad. That's okay. That's not okay. If that's the level of our political instincts, but that's not. I think real political instincts are compromising with other people, working together, or doing all this type of stuff, finding what policies will work in certain places. She's a one-note politician with a one-note party, and they're coming to the end of the line. So she's getting increasingly desperate. Yeah,
you're right. I mean, she showed very keen political instinct 2 years ago during COVID. She did very well then. We have to say did with her daily briefings. She still thinks she's got that. It's a bit like Prince Andrew thinking he had done well in that interview that time. Everyone else is thinking, oh my God, are you mad? And like you said about why on earth did she stand and give another press conference this week where she was absolutely torn apart? Anyway, but the last thing I do think is I'm noticing a lot of SNP figures, MPs, MSPs, even councillors, becoming more emboldened, more vociferous. And it's only, of course, a matter of weeks since the seemingly impregnable Blackford, in a shock move, was deposed by an absolutely unknown 30-something ex-councillor from Aberdeen. I mean, incredible. But I believe right now there are a number of MSPs eyeing the prize very hungrily. There are a lot of very, very ambitious MSPs in Holyrood, and they're not going to hesitate to deliver the fatal blow if they really sent blood. You said it, even Susan Aitken spoke out today, criticising the Scottish Government over a GC funding issue, which she feels will take funds away from Glasgow Council. Now, it is possible, of course, that I'm misreading all these signs, and all these hints that she's giving are just a ruse, and she's really going to mount a stunning comeback. Possible. I don't think it's going to happen, though, guys, and I will stake my reputation as a political analyst that it won't happen. So my prediction, just to repeat, the First Minister will announce sometime this year that she will not lead the party into the next Holyrood election, and in fact, she will not lead the party into the next UK general election. So let's see if I'm right, but that's what I believe.
Yeah, I guess I'm still thinking that it's going to be around party conference time. Which is, we're talking, March 16th or something.
It's only a month away.
It's going to be
the special conference on independence is only a month away.
If she cannot, she's lost the ability to be able to stand up in front of the press, because at any point they can wheel back and say, are you a man? Do you know what a man is? Do you know what a woman is? Yeah. This type of question. And every single transgender or fake transgender or whatever it is person who commits a crime now is at her doorstep. Yeah. So she cannot get away from it. There was this thing just today, that this person who apparently abducted the child. And it's all over the front pages of the newspaper. And whenever anyone sees that, they link the two with Nicola Sturgeon. This is the kind of person that Nicola Sturgeon is enabling to get into women and children's spaces. That just will not go away. That's that's a disaster. So they'll just keep hammering it, and she's stupid and used to political instincts. She's going to put this up to the Supreme Court, which is going to go on and on and on and on. And I think anyone who understands that, some people do it, they'll say, well, why are you going to do that? Because our party, every time you are the party, she's the party, right? So it's just going to make the worse for them all the way through. All right, we'll be back in a second, and we're going to go back to Nicola Sturgeon's speech.
Just before we get into this, guys, really interesting message from Murray Wallace. Sturgeon is the type who thinks along the lines of, right, if I can't lead Scotland to independence, then nobody else is going to get to lead them to independence, and that's highly possible also. I
think that's a good point, actually. That is a very good point. She certainly doesn't want Alex Salmond to become that. And Alex Salmond's been very vocal about this. But, I mean, what can Alex Salmond really do? Right? Is he going to get, a massive new support for Alba because of this? Okay, so he goes from 1% to 3%.
Yep.
That's the deal of it. Okay, say he's really, really, really successful and he gets to 5%.
It's true.
I mean, that's the level of it. Because people are just going to go, this is a dead loss. It's not going to happen. And then they're going to say, I'm politically homeless. And we talked about this last week. Political homeless is a halfway house where you sit before you think, I'm going to vote Labour probably again. Right? That's really what's going to happen, in my humble opinion.
Hopefully, yeah.
Right, so back to Nicola and her press conference now, but we've talked about how disastrous and how we think she's going to give up the ghost, as it were. Is that the right expression? But anyway, there's also the curious case of the loan in the nighttime.
Yeah.
Sturgeon appeared to have little knowledge about her husband's donation of £107,000 to the party. Let's get on there.
On a second issue, you talked about the benefits of financial transparency from political leaders in regards to your tax returns. When did you first know your husband had loaned the SNP £107,000?
Perfect.
My husband is an individual and he will take decisions about what he does with resources that belong to him in line with that. And I'm standing here as First Minister and that is what I'll answer for.
You also talked about internal management of the SNP earlier, so you do talk about SNP matters at these events. When did you first know he'd given that money to the party?
I can't recall exactly when I first knew that, but what he does with his resources is a matter for him.
It was wholly his money, any of it yours?
The resources that he lent the party to the party were resources that belonged to him.
Wholly to him, yeah?
They were his resources.
None of it was yours, no?
His resources.
This is a strange thing.
Strange language, huh?
It's just so weird, right? It's like my husband, instead of just saying my husband gave a loan to our savings
or whatever.
Yeah, it's like this individual has resources. I mean, you're like, what's this all about? It's crazy, and it's a bit strange. So I was talking me and Mary were talking about this yesterday. Now, Mary, you are an entrepreneur for 30 years. You've been running our accounts for a long time, that time.
Filing accounts for multiple companies
and so we had an
3 continents for 30
interesting
years.
chat about what this could possibly mean. I mean, what do you think? What do you think about this?
Well, I think the choice of language is very deliberate. I think she's trying to separate the husband from herself, first of all.
Yeah.
Which in Scottish law doesn't really, that's not really the case. I mean,
True.
it's all within the marriage. So these resources that she's talking about, generally, if it's assets or cash or whatever, these are very much shared and very much, she's responsible for them just as much as he is. Right. So that's very strange language to begin with. It could be, trying to figure out, what's going on. She's trying to separate herself, isn't she, from the issue?
Yeah. Well, she should release her tax return, and the tax return appears to be very clean. It's basically just got her income on it, and her tax, and that's it. There's nothing in there. Other people have said, well, what about she put a book out, she's got public appearances and so on, and they may or not may appear on there. But what is possible, of course, is that they put all the dodgy stuff into Peter's.
Well, if there is any dodgy stuff, I mean, what you would want to do, she knows that her returns are going to come under scrutiny, definitely.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any way for us to force him to declare his. So if you were doing anything that you didn't want other people to know about, or you just wanted to keep private or whatever, whether it was dodgy or whether you just don't want it to be revealed, the details revealed, then you would put it in the other person's name.
Yeah, and what do you think about this strange word, resources? She didn't specifically say money.
No,
well,
right?
that's why I said before that she uses the word resources. So I'm speculating that it's not cash. It's probably not assets that he's used. They probably haven't sold anything, because maybe that would have to be in the tax return as well. So I think the resources she's talking about is maybe his ability to get a loan or to get credit from somewhere. Right. Most likely a loan. I mean, that would be the obvious thing, that they got a loan from somewhere to cover the cash flow. They don't want to reveal who the loan is from, so he put it, or the person giving the loan doesn't want to be revealed as the person giving the loan, so they put it into his name.
Right. I mean, that seems quite credible, I think, that idea, because it's like his resources. He's got resources. It's not money. He's got funds.
No,
he's got the ability to get something, or he's done something. It's very strange.
It's very illuminating that she's using that phraseology. Definitely, that it's not an answer that you would give. You would just say, "My husband's money is his money." That's what you would say,
Right? Yeah.
Which it isn't actually, but anyway.
Exactly, Mary. What the interview should have said is, of course, it's 50% yours. Then, as you're married, you are married.
What he does with his money, I don't ask any questions. I don't know.
Yeah, but that's also a bit weird, because he's the CEO of the organisation,
exactly.
Right? And and he's giving a loan to his employer, and then she's also the head of the party, which is, I don't know, how does that work? What's that position?
Absolutely stinks. I talk about this later, actually. And to say nothing to do with me, Governor. Who are you kidding? You're the leader of the party, and he's the CEO, and you're husband and wife, and it's nothing to do with you. Do you think we are stupid? Seriously, really? But his resources.
Yeah, I mean, it's this very weird thing, So
the thing that I find more strange actually is the amount.
Yeah,
because it's a very specific amount.
Exactly.
£107,620.
Right.
I don't know if there were any pence involved, but I mean, why not £110,000? If I needed a loan to cover my cash flow, and I actually needed £107,620, I'd probably ask for £110,000 at least, or even 108,000. But I'm not really sure. Maybe someone who's delved more deeply into the accounts would know why it was that specific amount.
Yeah, it's very weird. I was one consideration was that the money may have come in a foreign currency
that's what I was thinking.
would have been translated. That's not the word. Exchanged.
Exchanged.
Right. I did a few calculations, and 107,000 it could be $150,000, but who knows really?
Well, it's one of those things that this whole issue is something. I don't know how unusual it is. I mean, it's not unusual for directors to give loans to companies or companies to give loans to directors or whatever, but they've just made it sound really dodgy, haven't they?
Yeah, you're right.
It's like they've made us all really look at it and say,
Yes.
oh, there must be something going on here because you're being so strange about it all.
It's very, very weird. She doesn't want to, and I think at a certain point people look at this overall thing. She doesn't want to call a rapist a male, right? And then she doesn't want to call her husband a husband, and she doesn't want to call a loan or the money he's got money either. It's very weird. She doesn't want to talk about anything. It's like at a certain point people go, what's going on here?
What's she hiding?
Yeah, why is she hiding all the time? Has she got into such a frame of mind that she can never ever give a straight response?
Here's an interesting thing, guys. $130,000 is £107,628, almost exactly the amount.
That's today, though.
Well, that's today.
But who knows? It hasn't moved much since then. But anyway.
Yeah, I used the calculator from the time of the loan. It was roughly $150,000.
Yeah.
So, well, there you go.
Could be someone in America's funding them.
Well, who knows? Well, they also got some money for that. Remember, they did that newspaper insert in the National. It must have cost a good amount of cash for the SNP. And where did the money come from for that? We never found out. Perhaps we will never know what's going on here. But the evasive way in which Sturgeon answered the question definitely makes me think.
In that particular year, they're about £700,000 down.
Right, but you don't go to what's that? You don't go to NewsQuest and say, "Give us a loan so we can print our a leaflet." That's not the way it works. You have to have the money. Okay, so with any luck, perhaps the Scottish media will start asking more of these questions. Right, here's
a nice quote from John T. Scott. She's on the hook and wriggling as the fish get more aggressive, and it will soon be sharp.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah, this is good. This is good. This is quite a good way to do the comments. You can give a bit of expression.
Wish we had a little graphic for that as well.
Catherine saying journalists need to say exactly as I did. Do you think we're stupid? That would be good. It would be better than just the nonsense, the anodyne nonsense they do ask. Let's see if I can get another one. It sounds like mafia talk, quite right. Indeed, it does. Some really, really good quotes, and everybody is saying the same thing. Nobody believes a word she's saying about this. All very, very dodgy.
Something going on.
It's extremely dodgy. All right, we're back.
Something fishy.
Fishy, very, very fishy in Sturgeon land. We will be back in a second. Mary's going to talk about the state of the nation.
Yep.
Okay. Right. So last night, President Joe Biden gave a State of the Nation address to the American people. And so tonight, I thought I'd give our Nations in a State address to the Scottish people.
Yes.
Mark, have you got the Ipsos Mori poll?
Oh, yes, I do have that. So just a second.
Okay, so last week, Ipsos Mori did a poll asking people if they thought that the Scottish government were doing a good job or a bad job. I don't know if you can see it very clearly, but what is clear is that twice as many people thought they were doing a bad job as doing a good job. So these are some of the issues that are important to people: improving people's living standards, managing the economy, improving the education system, and so on. So over the past few months, we've talked on the show about a lot of the main issues affecting Scotland. We've talked about the cost of living crisis, the health crisis, the education crisis, the ferries crisis, the housing crisis, businesses are in crisis, councils are in crisis. In fact, there's crisis everywhere. Our nation now is in a state of perpetual crisis. Have I missed anything, guys?
No, absolutely
No,
not.
that's pretty.
I'm sure there are more, but these are the things that
transport crisis.
There's a transport crisis. That's true.
Or the roads. I mean, it's not just
well,
the ferries.
Roads,
it's
transport,
roads. A9 is going to be delayed.
Years behind. Yep.
What's the other transport thing? Potholes everywhere and so on.
Yep. So, as I said, we're in a kind of state of perpetual crisis.
Yep.
And then every day we read and we're hearing about the issues that the Scottish government are deeply involved in. And it isn't anything to do with any of these crises that we're mired in.
That's true.
It's as if these crises don't exist. I mean, what are we talking about tonight? We're talking about Nicola Sturgeon and the SNP embroiled in arguments about gender self-ID. Who's a man? Who's a woman? What prison should they be going to? And how they've planned a conference in March to discuss plans for a de facto referendum.
Yeah.
Whatever the hell that is. But when are they working on any of these crises that are going on? Have you heard anything else about working on any of these things? The education crisis, health crisis, businesses, anything?
No, they're just up their own behind, as the expression goes. Dealing with things that people don't really care about. People care about their health. They want an NHS to work. They want, and of course, the reminder: the Scottish NHS is fully devolved, right? So it's entirely the responsibility of the Scottish government. Okay, so they want to know: is it working? Just at Christmas time, we had massive queues and so on. And are those still happening or not?
Yes,
Most likely they're still happening, right?
Yeah, 50% of people don't meet the 4 hour. When they get to A&E, they don't get admitted in 4 hours.
Okay, so there's one thing.
It's worse
and then
than
there's a cost of living crisis. What are they doing to help that? It's just there's nothing going on
I
at
don't
all.
know anything.
They're not talking about it. They're not even talking about it.
I'm not reading anything about that. I'm not seeing it on the news. I'm not hearing it on the radio. All I'm hearing about is gender identities and nonsense, basically. So, and as if that wasn't bad enough, their partners in the destruction of Scotland, the Greens, they're steadily going about their business of closing down Scotland.
Oh, yes.
Basically trying to close us down one home, one car, and one business at a time.
Well, if you literally. They don't want even to have a car. I mean, really, come on.
Yeah, I'm about to talk about that. So, when I say like one home, so our homes are under threat from the Greens because they're naive and dangerous policies of punishing landlords with no eviction and no rent increase policies. So these alone, those two things alone have stopped billions of pounds of new social housing developments and pushed thousands of landlords. Basically, they're getting out the business because there's no money in it and there's too much to deal with, as David, you've found out yourself. Indeed. It's ridiculous. So homelessness is increasing. And then we've got some of our future taxpayers who are students, and we're seeing that a lot of those people had to give up their places at university because they didn't have anywhere to stay.
Absolutely true.
Pupils I know it's happening in Glasgow, it's happening in Edinburgh, it's happening in St Andrews. It's absolutely ridiculous. We've got this housing crisis. I said also like one car at a time because the Greens, with their stupid 15-minute cities and 20-minute neighbourhoods policies, they're trying to force people off the road.
Yeah, so we talked about the 15-minute policy last time. It's, they've got these ideas that seem intent. They seem to just annoy ordinary people instead of helping them.
Yeah.
Right? People are like, they need, I think a lot of people don't need help. Right? They're just like, okay, I just want to live my life as if the government, I need something from the government, it's good if it's there. Some bad times happen. If I lose my job and so on, I can get some unemployment money. And if I'm sick, I can go to the hospital. That's really the way they think about it. But some people, of course, need these services more than others. But instead of talking about these services, they're just talking about all this nonsense all the time. And I want to remind people that the Scottish government costs £600 million a year. In fact, it costs more now. It costs £700 million a year. That's what the budget was, £697 million for this coming year, to make these decisions, these non-decisions, right? To not decide to help the people who need help, and instead to be a talking shop for these, as Alex Salmond even said, imported ideologies.
Yeah.
Right?
True.
And and why is the focus on all that instead of? I mean, Sam would want the focus, of course, being independence, but we don't want that either. What we want is the focus to be on the things that actually matter to people, and add independence consistently, and even these green issues and so on consistently are way down the list.
Yeah.
Well, I've talked about how they're trying to get rid. Basically, they're not getting rid of our homes, but they're not building the new homes that are going to be needed. They're trying to get the cars off the road and kill cars with their.
Yep.
And they've got these LEZ zones and banning drive-throughs and God knows what other crazy ideas they've got. But they're also targeting businesses. Mm-hmm. Businesses are under threat from unnecessary and totally incompetent policies. Now, one of those that's in the news at the moment is Lorna Slater's bottle deposit return scheme. But Mark, I know you're going to be talking about that.
Oh, yes, I'm going to talk about that later.
I'll leave that. But I mean, businesses are they're not on board with it. They're not prepared for it. I'll say that.
Indeed
okay. And then the other thing that's in the news this week is that they're proposing the continuation of them proposing about the bans on alcohol advertising. Yep. So people are pointing out, well, hey, wait a minute, this is going to really harm the Scottish whisky industry. What about companies like Tennent's Lager?
Yep.
When they can't, they're not allowed to have the names on the outside of the buildings.
It's crazy.
So Johnny Walker, somebody said that today.
In Edinburgh, yeah.
What are you going to do? You're going to cover it up? Brilliant.
Absolutely. It's the nutters. And
absolutely. They're trying to destroy everything that we hold dear in Scotland. Guys, I could go on all night. You know that. Yeah. But basically, the state of our nation is that we have a government in Scotland that is anti-business, anti-car, anti-women, and anti-alcohol. And we know that Nicola Sturgeon, she likes to call herself the chief mammy. Well, she's not the chief mammy. She's the chief auntie. Everything that's good for Scotland.
Yeah, very good.
Very good, Mary. See what you did there. Very good. Yes, it's quite. It's just. I think that Scotland always had this kind of prurient. Is that the right word or the other word? Is that
prudish?
Puritanical.
Yeah, prurient's the opposite, isn't it?
Prurient means you want to look into somebody's private life.
Oh, yes, that's right. No, but the opposite. This prudence and temperance movement,
abolition.
All that kind of things, was, and to be fair, certainly in the times that those things were happening, there was a lot of problems with alcohol and so on. But the idea is, I think they like this idea of collective punishment. They like to punish people for sins of the few. So I think it's better to target the people who are causing the trouble. And I'll come on to that a little bit later, instead of targeting everyone. And then the people who are causing the trouble, just ignore it anyway. So that's it. Okay, great segment here, Mary. State of the nation or disaster.
Quick couple of messages. Martin Knox says, I'm from England. If I was in Scotland, considering the gender bill, could I identify as an Apache helicopter? Well, I'd like to identify as a blancmange, because I really like blancmange. So I think I'm going to do that.
You could eat yourself.
You don't wobble enough, though, David.
That's true, yeah, exactly. Somebody said here, Sturgeon's done nothing, but Catherine said, that's so unfair. Remember the baby boxes.
Oh, for God's sake, the baby boxes.
Forget Catherine, you're so right. And what else have we got? Blah, blah, blah. That's about it for now. Green's lying so low on the gender issue. If you drove over them, you'd think you'd hit a pot roll. That's a good point, actually.
Yeah, we haven't seen them, have we?
Right. Okay. So things you can do to help the show. You can make a donation to our Resign Sturgeon billboard campaign. Get it over £5,000. That'd be great. We're trying to get slightly better locations, so everything you can add in really will help.
The more budget we have, the more billboards we can put up, and the better locations we can get.
That's right. You can buy a T-shirt and a mug. Here they are. These hopefully will be collector's items by the end of the year, according to David. And please subscribe to the show on YouTube and tell your friends and so on about us. Coming up, it is the highlight of the week, the moment you've all been waiting for. It is Zoomer of the Week.
Yay.
Right, Dave, you're up first.
I'm up. Okay. So this week, my nomination for Zoomer of the Week is Jenny Gilruth, the SNP's Transport Minister. So not for the appalling state of Scotland's roads on her watch, but for her utterly wretched performance on Question Time last Thursday. Now, bear in mind, this is in the immediate aftermath of Sturgeon being skewered on gender bill because of Adam Graham. So in a toe-curlingly awful demonstration of how badly to follow the party line, when she was asked if Adam Graham is a man or a woman, Gilruth parroted the First Minister's absurd "the individual is a rapist" phrase, which of course means absolutely nothing. Have you got the clip?
Yes, so here it comes.
It says that language is very important, and I agree. And I think most people at home will have noticed that you kept saying the individual. But I mean, you have to beg the question, is Adam Graham the double rapist? A man,
who now calls himself
fine, if that's what he wants to do. A man or a woman? Because the question at hand is not whether this rapist should serve a sentence for rape. It's whether this individual is a man or a woman, and therefore which prison he or she goes into. So what is your answer? Is this individual a man or a woman?
I'm sorry, this individual is a rapist.
No. I want to know, is this individual a man or a woman?
Please? The First Minister was asked this question today at First Minister's Question Time. She gave the response
very confusing
answer. If you'll let me speak. She gave the response that she didn't know enough about the individual in question. I would say likewise. But I think the most important thing in this case, we have to be very careful because we trust the Scottish Prison Service to make these judgments on behalf of Scottish ministers. That is their role, that is their job. And it's also worth saying to the point in relation to reviews. There are 2 reviews underway at the moment in Scotland, one in relation to the case that was previously discussed, and that will report tomorrow, and the second is being undertaken by the Scottish Prison Service and will report directly to Scottish ministers. It is absolutely essential. We trust the prison service to make these decisions to keep our prison population safe. I have answered the question.
No, you haven't. You haven't. But can I just say, if I can cut it, the reason why I think this is
only one more chance to answer the question.
Carry on. I'd love to hear your answer. I really would.
This individual is a rapist. That is the most important thing.
Now listen, the reason why this is such an important...
Quite shocking stuff there.
I think that speaks for itself.
Absolutely right. Now, just to bear in mind, guys, this is a Glasgow audience, okay? And bear in mind also, the woman firmly putting Gilruth on the spot here is Ella Whelan. Ella Whelan, as you may not know, is an assistant editor at Spiked Online, which is pretty much a right-wing libertarian publication. Yeah. So just bear in mind that in the metaphorical backyard of an SNP MSP, the Glasgow audience greeted Gilruth's comments with stony silence and jeers while they vigorously applauded Ella Whelan, a right-wing journalist. That just shows you how out of touch the SNP is with Scottish people on not just the issue of the Gender Recognition Reform Bill, but on the wider question of independence, because you now see opinion polls saying no is back in the lead again after what I always said was a dead cat bounce after the really. And now even SNP supporters don't back a referendum this year. It's just a joke. They've lost their touch. Their leader's taken them nowhere. Last week you saw Jenny Gilruth desperately trying to remain loyal to the outgoing leader, but it wasn't convincing and it won't last. Jenny, I know you'll be among the first to stab the First Minister in the back when the time comes. So for your wholly unconvincing display of loyalty, you are my Zoomer of the week.
Yeah, very, very, very poor. But they're all going to be crucified on this. You know, that's the problem because they can't. It's just impossible to argue.
All they can do is squirm.
Yeah, all they can do is squirm. Right, we'll be back in a second with Mary Zoomer.
Okay, my Zoomer of the week this week is Humza Yousaf, a regular on the show, because him and his wife tried to put a small local nursery out of business by making them spend thousands on legal costs.
Yep.
And then they dropped the case without even issuing an apology. But it's been 15 months that the nursery has had this hanging over them, basically. If you remember, do you remember it started back in November 2021, 15 months ago? So they brought this a £30,000 case against the nursery that he'd accused them of discrimination. He alleged that the children with Scottish-sounding names were getting places and his child wasn't getting a place at the nursery. Now, the owner of the nursery is called Usha Fowdar. So that's not a Scottish-sounding name,
well,
which makes you...
So many people are Scottish with it's not a Scottish sounding name, yes, but it's still a Scottish person.
Yeah, I know she's Scottish. I know, but he was talking about people are being denied if they don't have a Scottish sounding name. And
right.
the owner doesn't have,
point is now. Okay.
Right. The owner doesn't have a Scottish sounding name,
right.
so you think that they wouldn't be, against people who didn't have Scottish sounding names.
Right. Okay.
And she actually said that she would have liked to have gone to court because they wanted to basically exonerate their business and exonerate the staff's jobs had all been under scrutiny and whatever. So she wanted to clear the air. But she said that they've basically spent about 18 months and tens of thousands of pounds defending the nursery against Humza and his wife's false claims.
Yeah, it's hopeless, really.
So that's why he's my Zoomer of the week. It's too. I mean, they've overused their power. Basically, he has.
Yeah.
But yesterday, you might have noted that when most of the media, when the case has been dropped, apparently it's his wife's case that's being dropped.
Oh, right.
So he's trying to.
They use their pulpit as politicians to try and get more action on it and bullied. It seemed a very strong case of bullying, and if that's the way they deal with a nursery, which seems to be like a very soft target, then how do they deal with people in the negotiations that are trying to do, and he's trying to do these negotiations for nurses and so on, and just even negotiating anything with the Scottish NHS, which he is a lead minister for, unfortunately.
Very good point.
So that's that. Well, that was pretty good, Mary. I think many people would agree that is, he's very poor action.
Yeah.
Okay, coming up, me. Right. Well, mine is Lorna Slater for a bottle return scheme. I had some pages, but they seem to have disappeared. The whole idea
it's one of those
But you can just look in the newspaper and you can see many, many people saying that this idea is a disaster in the making. The whole drinks industry is against it. The people are against it. Maybe I've got the thing. Maybe I have that somewhere. Is it? Oh, no. We did a poll on the majority site, 96%. Percent of people who answered said that the drinks companies should boycott the proposal. I mean, it's just idea to say we've got the idea where instead of simply putting our bottles into the recycle bin, we have to store them up in our house, then take them to a recycle point, wait in a line in the rain behind somebody else who's putting in months worth of their bottles, get a pound out or whatever it is, and then drive back using fuel both ways. It's just utter nonsense. And people have said to me though, but Mark, what about all the bottles on the side of the roads? And this is a thing that I was quite shocked by when we came back from overseas. We'd been 8 years in the United States, and of course there's trash outside of the roads in the States as well. But it was shocking the amount of bottles and stuff that was outside of the motorways, and particularly bad in the winter when all the grass goes away. Now, I hate that. It's appalling, right? But I don't do that.
No,
I don't put my rubbish out the car window. I don't throw away takeaway packets in the street. So instead of punishing everyone, why don't you punish the people who actually do that? You can put a camera at many junctions, there are hotspots for that, and just take a picture of the person throwing the thing out and their license plate and fine them. And a few more high-profile people like that, if you publicise those...
And name and shame,
yeah, name and shame.
Right,
the actual people who are doing it, right? Bin it at home. And, teach school kids not to, instead of talking about gender reforms, teach them not to drop their rubbish everywhere. Outside school is a disaster. Anyway, so I saw a post from the Scottish Hospitality League, right? And they were complaining that with packaging and other costs, the cost is more like not going to be 20p, it's going to be 50p on a bottle of stuff, right? And that's before we get in costs of managing this scheme. So I asked them, I said to them, why don't you urge your members to boycott it? And they said they wanted to do the right thing. Well, the right thing is to boycott it and to stop this absurd law before it goes any further. The Scottish drinks industry should boycott this law, and Lorna Slater should really just mind her own business.
She's just meddling in things, just trying to fix things that don't need fixing. When there's a million things that do need
these
fixing.
Things, I think it's fair enough to fix them, but fix them in a way that actually works and doesn't destroy whole industries and doesn't annoy law-abiding citizens, right? We don't throw our trash around. Concentrate on the people who do put their trash around.
Absolutely.
It's absolutely ridiculous. Anyway, David is going to decide.
Okay.
Oh, I'm going to decide this week. Okay, right. Well, Lorna's always good for a laugh because she's just crazy. Jenny Gilruth, I'm afraid, is too lightweight to get it. So it's going to go to Humza. And it's going to go to Humza because what he and his wife did was absolutely shameful. They tried to play at shouting racism to people of an Indian background on the basis of them being pro-Scottish. What the hell are you talking about? But to use your position of power to try to muscle a very small business out of operation, disgraceful, absolutely disgusting. Humza, you win. Awful.
I think that really is terrible. I think you're right. It's a good choice there, David. Although a close run, definitely Jenny Gilruth.
Yes.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
Awful. All right. Just a reminder, there'll be no show next week as we have to go to London. So we'll be back with another show in 2 weeks, Wednesday, February the 22nd. We'll miss you too. Big thank you to UK Union Voice, United Against Separation, who for their support. We thank you very much.
And of course, if you can, guys, please go to the donate page and pledge a donation for Resign Sturgeon billboards. It's going to be a huge help, and they will be very, very eye-catching, and they will be very timely also.
Yes, and coming soon.
I'm really sorry about the comments tonight, everyone. Yeah. I love seeing all your comments.
The comments were terrific tonight.
David's been able to see them, Mark and I have not, but we will get it fixed for next time, we promise.
Right, okay, and I'll leave you with the thought for the week. I saw this poll. Here's a poll here, Scottish Independence voting intention. Yes, 40%, no, 46%. And nationalists are always telling us that if they get 60% of the vote, they deserve an independence referendum. Well, how about when the pro-UK side reaches 60%, we get a referendum to abolish Holyrood?
Yes.
Then we could stop billions being spent on letting extremist nationalists like Nicola, Sturgeon and her Green pals create chaos and division all throughout Scotland. More on that.
Brilliant.
Thank you very much for joining us. We'll see you again in 2 weeks. All right, take care,
guys.
and we'll see you soon.
Thank you. Good night.
Cheers, everyone. Thanks very much for joining.